This is Cadillac Unscripted on 1079 CDY. Katie Huckle has the week off. This is sponsored by Independent Bank, and this is a show that I have been wanting to do for a very, very long time. Now, most folks know that one of my other jobs is a paraprofessional in the digital media production classroom at the Wexford-Missaukee Career Tech Center. And this is actually the first time that I get to interview one of my former students. I knew you as Cassie Potter, but you're Cassie Faust now because you're a married lady.
Yes.
How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I am great. And, the reason why I wanted to have you on, Cassie, is because in the 6.5 years since you left the classroom, because you graduated in 2016, you've lived enough to have several lifetimes. You seriously have. And I got to tell you the story. So while you were in our classroom, you were one of a few students who were on a rotation. You worked at 9 and 10 News for a little while, kind of got the ins and outs of the operations department, and you graduated. And I happened to be out at 9 and 10 one day, and I was running graphics for a newscast, and appearing on the screen in a mugshot is my former student. And you're giggling about this right now because you are recovering. But you were, Cassie, one of my favorite students. You truly were. And my heart sank. And I knew there was a story. And several years have passed since that day. So this is kind of a story of redemption. It's a story of you rising up from the ashes, rebuilding your life, and you're already crying. I'm sorry. So why don't you take me on a timeline from the last time that I saw you in the digital media production classroom to where we are today? There's a lot to tell.
Yes, there's a lot. Okay, so I graduated high school and I was living with my parents. Mm-hmm. I turned 18. I moved out into the first place that I lived outside of my parents' house with my boyfriend. And then things were rough. We were always fighting.
I'm going to stop you right there. As an 18-year-old, were you one of those teenagers that said, the moment I'm graduated, I'm getting the heck out of Dodge? Is that what you were thinking?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And
yes.
a lot of 18-year-olds, as soon as they graduate, that's what they think. I got to get out of here. People, my parents are cramping my style. I gotta find something. So anyway, go ahead.
I just wanted to be out on my own and figure life out. And it has been a journey so far.
Yeah, it certainly has. So, so you moved out, and so take me to the first couple of years after you graduated high school.
I was on and off with the boyfriend that I had at that time, and I would move back into my parents' house, back into living with him, and then back to my parents' house. Every time we broke up like 4 times before it was over with. I was working at McDonald's and delivering pizza at BC Pizza. I was going to frat parties, and I was a designated driver, so I wasn't drinking that much, but I was just having a fun time. And then we had broke up that last time, and then I met the guy who I'm married to now. He is quite a bit older than me, and my parents did not approve, so I got kicked out, and then I was forced to move in with him. Well, living with him and stuff, everything was good until we got into hard drugs. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like he pushed them on me or anything. We did them together, tried them both for the first time together, so it wasn't like that. And it's once you try meth for like that first time, if you don't have control, then it's all downhill from there. Because I told myself it was gonna be just a weekend thing, just a couple day thing, and then I was working at an AFC home at that time. Those two did not mix at all. Mm-hmm. I was working at an AFC home, and I had to go back to work after that first 3-day binge. I was tired. I was hungry because you don't eat or don't sleep, and I was just exhausted. I went back to work, and I worked for the week, and then again, I had a couple days off, so I decided, let's do it again. And then I did that for a couple weeks, and then by like the third or fourth weekend of doing that, it turned into a week long, and I didn't even realize that it was that long that I was doing it. It turned into from 2 days to a whole 7 days of doing it, and I was like, I didn't even notice until I was at work. I was cooking my residents' food, and I was like, this smells really good. And I was like, when is the last time I ate? And
you didn't realize.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was thinking back, I was like, I didn't eat yesterday. And then I was like, I wonder if I lost any weight. So after I'm done cooking, I go and jump on the scale. I lost 10 pounds like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, cha-ching, the way to lose weight.
Not the way to lose weight.
No, it's not. It's not. And then, I wasn't just doing it. After like a little bit, I lost my job because I was always calling in. I was always late because that's just what drugs do to you. You don't want to do anything.
Mm-hmm. But drugs.
Exactly. And I lost my job. So then got to find another income. So we started dealing. And then that didn't last very long. Doing drugs and dealing them is not something like you can do together because you will get caught up real quick.
And I want to say for clarification, you are completely free from probation. You are you're free to live your life the way you want to. You're not under any supervision or anything like that at this point in your life. So, but then you got caught.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened?
Well, it's my boyfriend. He was on parole, and some girl that we really trusted, we let in, and the first chance she got, she went and told on us because she dropped dirty for her probation officer. So, our house got raided. They came in, took my boyfriend to jail, went through all of our stuff, ransacked my room. My clothes were out of my dressers, my nightstands everywhere. My vanity with all my makeup and everything was just strewed all over the room. And I went to jail for 2 days until I got bonded out. And when I got arrested, I didn't know what to do. Like, I've never been in trouble before in my life. The worst I've done is get in trouble for not doing my homework. I've never.
Or in the classroom, Cassie, can you put your phone away, please?
Yeah. Or Cassie, can you stop talking?
Right.
Yes.
So this is a whole new severe thing for you. Yeah.
I was scared, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should tell them the truth, if I should lie until my face turned blue. I didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So, and I was just frantic at that time because I'd been up for 5 days. I'd been using. And it was nighttime. It was summertime. I was just in shorts and this t-shirt. And I was in the detective's van. They were talking to me, and they have more than one person ask you what happened and if you have drugs and all that, because they want to catch you up in a lie.
They want to make sure that your answers are consistent.
Exactly.
Sure.
So I was telling these people, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to you again. I've already said what I had to say. Mm-hmm. And I was just bawling. I didn't know what to do. I was anxious. And they didn't even put me in handcuffs because I was so frantic. They weren't scared that I was going to run away. So then I went to jail. And
at that point, they probably didn't know you had no prior criminal record, right?
No.
They probably looked at your face and said, "We trust this girl." Okay.
Yeah, so then I was in there. Don't remember anybody's phone number. I don't know who to call. It was 3:00 in the morning by the time I got booked in and I was able to make a phone call. The only person that I could remember their number was my poor grandma getting a call from me from jail at 3:00 in the morning.
And what does that do from an emotional standpoint? What does that do to you? I mean, I can see right now In recalling this is hard for you.
Yeah, well, it was my grandma who passed away from cancer that I had to call. And she didn't live too many years after that. Yeah, so it's kind of rough, and it's hard sometimes because I feel like I've let her down. And I try not to beat myself up about it because sometimes I think if you weren't doing those drugs and you weren't away from your family, you could have had more time.
But you can't go back. And the best thing you can do for your family is recover.
Exactly.
And just do better.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting when you get into a rough patch like you do. The first person that you send a phone call to is the one that you believe is going to care the most, and probably is going to be the one who is going to be the least harsh on you, right?
Oh no, my grandma, she told you what she thought, and she did not care.
Sounds like my own mother. Anyway, yeah.
She did not care. So
that phone call is placed.
Yep, and I ask her. I try not to give her the details because I know she's gonna be mad. So I'm like, I'm in jail. I just need my dad's number. She's like, what are you in jail for? And I'm like, Grandma, not right now.
Okay.
So yeah, and then I have to tell her, and then she's like, all right, well, gave me my dad's number, and I'm assuming she probably went back to bed after that because it's 3 a.m. But I call my dad, I think. I don't remember if I called him right after that or if I called him the next day. And then he calls my other grandma, and I fill out the paper for a court-appointed attorney because I was like, I know I don't have money for that. I know my family don't have money for that, so I'm going to have to get a court-appointed one. Well, then I didn't think I was getting out of there either. I did not think that I was going to be able to get bonded out because, again, I'm not somebody who comes from a bunch of money.
Right. And this
doesn't just have it.
First time experience for you, so you don't know probably really how the system works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then somebody told me about a bondsman and everything, and I was like, well, maybe, just maybe. So my dad got connected to the bondsman, and they came and got me 2 days after. So I was there for 2 days. Then after that, I found out that my grandma actually got the money for a actual lawyer, and he's actually right here in Cadillac, and he did a really good job with my case and everything. He got it from 7 charges to 1, and then I was able to get the HIDA.
Squeeze in a little closer to the microphone. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so I got out, and then my dad immediately made me go get all my stuff and move back in with him.
As a parent, I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, whether my kid liked it or not, I probably would have done the same thing. It's like, I got to keep an eye on you, kiddo.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did, too.
Okay.
He's like, you don't have an option. So I loaded up as much stuff as I could into my dad's truck, and then he drove me. No, I lived in Benzie at this time. So he drove from Benzie County Jail to back in Leroy, where I grew up as a kid and everything. So I'm there, and then I get put on bond, and I'm not allowed to have contact with my boyfriend. I'm not allowed to get in any trouble at all. So I was on a very tight leash with my dad, and I stayed home, and I went to the library, and that's all. And a couple days later, I had to go back to drug test because I had to drug test Mondays and Fridays at like 6 a.m. And when I was first arrested, they didn't drug test me at all. Like, I thought usually when you get arrested for drugs or something, then they're going to drug test you. No, they didn't drug test me at all. So I went back and I took a drug test, and there were still drugs in my system because I was using them every single day every single night for months.
And it hadn't gotten out of your system yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I failed a little bit, and they put me right back in jail. And I thought that they were going to revoke my bond. They tried to, but I explained to them that I didn't do anything wrong, that it was just from before. They said, okay, well, pass the drug test, then you can go home. So I was in there for another 3 days. They finally gave me a drug test, and I was able to go home. And then living with my parents, I got a job, and I was doing my drug test. I was doing everything I was supposed to do. And then it came to like a couple months later in December. I got arrested originally in September. Actually, 6 days after I turned 19, I got arrested. And a couple months later, December 11th or 12th, I went in for sentencing. And they had dropped it down from 8 charges, 7 or 8, to 1. And it was possession of meth. And I had to plead guilty to that. And it's the 7411. And I got 90 days in jail, 100 hours of community service, and a couple $1,000s in fines. And then I was like, I really didn't think I was going to jail that day. And I think my lawyer didn't think I was going to jail that day either. And, I went to jail, and it wasn't the worst experience. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But
You're talking about being in jail.
Yeah. It was very lonely and kind of boring. I can probably tell you I've almost read more books sitting in jail than I have my entire life.
In the 19 years leading up to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't too bad. There was a couple arguments. Like, it wasn't as bad as some things that you hear about. There wasn't that many arguments, just a couple, like, bickering between some girls in there. And there wasn't anything, like, severely bad that happened.
But it's not something you would ever want to repeat.
No, definitely not. It was very boring.
Yeah.
It was very lonely. And everything there costs way more. And the food isn't that great either. I mean, we got cake almost every single day, so that was kind of cool. But that was, like, the best thing about it.
Well, you weren't losing weight anymore from drug use. Let's put it that way.
Right?
So how long were you in jail?
75 days.
Okay.
Because I had 5 days of good time, or 5 days of the time that I served before when I got arrested. And then I think it was 10 days of good time. Like every so many weeks you're there, you get so many days off.
Okay.
So, and that's if you don't do anything wrong either. So if you were causing trouble or getting in trouble in there, then they could take your good time away if they feel like it. Yeah, so.
Okay. So you get out.
Yeah.
What happens then?
I get out, and there's this guy that I was talking to before I went to jail. And I think that it's a good idea to move in with him, because when you're on probation, you have to have a job. You have to have reliable transportation. You have to be able to go see your probation officer and everything, and be able to have communication with them, have a phone, everything. And actually, if you don't have a job, I was told that they can put you in jail for not having a job or a stable place to live. And my dad didn't have a car at this time, and it just didn't seem like a good situation to get myself back up on my feet. So I moved in with him, and then we started dating. And that wasn't really the best idea, because, I mean, I got clean and I got a good job and I was doing good for myself. But then I was clean for 2 years. I worked on an assisted living home. I was making good money, got a car loan, everything. And then I just started to not really even like to be in the same room with him anymore. Like, I just, like, he just kind of annoyed me. Like, I knew I wasn't in love with him anymore. And I don't even know if I was in the beginning or not. But
It just seemed like that was a way for you to be able to return to normalcy faster.
yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, at the beginning, I did like him, and I did want to hang out with him, and we got along good and everything. And then just over time, like, I wanted to be out on my own, and I wanted to be able to not have to answer to anybody, not have to tell anybody anything. And we lived with his parents. So it was like, I kept telling him this, like, I want to have our own place. And he didn't really seem like he was too interested in it. And he was okay with just staying there, and I wasn't. So that's one thing that started to make me, like, have different thoughts about him. And then I realized, like, I didn't care to hug him or kiss him or anything like that, like couples do. And I didn't, that was not appealing to me anymore. I went to work and I played my video game at home, my PlayStation, and that's like it. You know.
Not a fulfilling life.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't have really many friends that I hung out with or anything. And it was just, I worked a lot. And I was just not happy with that anymore.
Going backwards a little bit, after all that you had been through, did you find out at that point who your true friends were?
Yeah.
Did a lot of people just kind of fall off the way? And
Yeah. There's a few friends that I have been friends with since high school that have stuck by my side the whole time, through not talking to them because I was using drugs, through me coming back up from using drugs, trying to get my life together. And then, like, especially this one, she's my best friend in the world, Courtney Ingram. She's the best.
You've been called out, Courtney.
Yes.
In a very good way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, Cassie is tearing up here just thinking about you, Courtney. So that's pretty awesome. That's, you find out when you hit the skids, when things go wrong in your life through decisions that you made or just through circumstances that happen to you, that's when you find out who really cares. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and then so before, when going backwards a little bit again, when me and this person just started dating, been out of jail for 5-6 months, I had actually, we were fighting all the time, and I was just not happy. So I actually made a phone call and tried to purchase drugs again. And
you fell back into this because of the extreme unhappiness that you were wanting to retreat into the safety of drugs that you had known before.
Yeah, well, see, I had purchased them, but I never got them in hand. Then by the time I was able to, because I didn't want him to know, I didn't want my boyfriend to know, and I didn't want his family that I was living with to know. So I was trying to be very secretive about it, but it's hard when you're living right there next to them. And, they know everywhere you go. They know what you do, everything. So then a couple days later, when I was actually able to go pick them up, at that point, I didn't want them anymore. I was like, just keep it. I don't care. And then fast forward to all that, like, our life was good and it was okay. I didn't try to do anything after that. But then I started talking to the same person again that actually I tried to buy them from before. And then I hung out with him. Everything was fine. I didn't use, but I knew that he did. And I knew that he was high when I got there. So then, it's like the back of my mind, I was like, I really want to. Like, what is so bad if I do it again?
Mm-hmm.
So then I went back home.
And you know the answer to that question now in retrospect.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I go back home and I am really upset because I want to break up with him, but I don't know how because I know that he loves me and he tries to show me like that he cares and all that, but I just don't want it anymore. So I'm like, how do I do this? How do I break his heart? Like it was just very upsetting for me. And then finally I left and I had 5 days off from work and I left and I broke up with him and I was like, I just can't do this anymore. Well, I went and hung out with that guy and then since I was spending the night there, I used and then that just went downhill from there.
So how long of a period of time went between you being clean the first time and then falling off the wagon, so to speak, again?
2 years.
2 years.
I was clean for 2 years a little bit over 2 years before I started using again.
Okay.
And I had 5 days off from work, so I just stayed with him. And he lived in an RV in the middle of the woods. Like, he was just at campgrounds or whatever. It wasn't a really good situation. So I was there for the 5 days.
Smiling at you because I know that you're looking back thinking, what was I thinking, right?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it gets worse from here. So, and I went back to work at the adult foster care home or the assisted living home that I worked at. And mind you, I've been here for over a year almost, and I loved this job. This is the best job that I've ever had, I thought. And then once again, I was using, and then I had went back to hanging out with him because I didn't go back to my old boyfriend's place because I didn't want to be with him and I didn't want to talk to him or want him to try to get me to stay with him or anything like that. So my mom had lived close by at that point, so I would stay the night at her house. And then when I was able to, I would go stay with him. But then when I was there, I was using. So my mom lost her apartment. I wasn't able to stay with her no more. So the only other place that I had was this guy that had drugs.
You were in a position where the only people that you could rely on were people that didn't have your best interests at heart.
Right.
That's hard.
And also he lived over an hour away from my job. So I'd have to leave my job, go there. And it was the middle of winter. And we lived in an RV. And he worked. I eventually quit my job because every single day for a month straight, I was late. If it wasn't 1 minute, 20 minutes, half hour, because that's just how it is. Like, I have never met a functioning addict.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is functioning, but at the same point, like, you're always late. You're always paranoid. You're always like, what if this person knows and they're like, these two people are talking about me at work, or like, you just think everyone's out to get you.
Mm-hmm.
And really, like, that's not what's happening, but because you're so paranoid.
That's what your brain is telling you.
Yeah. And eventually I quit. They told me, if you do not show up on time, you will pretty much be fired, because I was late for every single day for a month straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I was running late again. I was like, well, might as well not even go because I'm just going to get fired. So at that point, we were living together in his RV. He was working. He was also doing things behind my back, talking to his ex. Like, he was just a very shady person. And I didn't see it at that point, but I had suspicions about some things because his ex would text me, and then I was like, well, he's like, oh, she's lying and all this, and I believed him. Stupid me. But that's just how it is. Like I have trust in people. Like I'm a kind-hearted person, and I will give you 1,000 chances, and, and people take advantage of that. But I started using heavy again, and I started to
What
lose.
year was this? Now, what year are we talking here?
In 2021 to 2022.
Okay, so on up until last year.
Yep. I started using again, I think, in October of 2021. I quit my job in January, I think, of 2022. Yep.
And so during that time, drugs had taken away any ability you had to support yourself
Yeah.
from
Pretty
from a
much.
job perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I pretty much relied on him. And then,
And that is the hardest thing when you are completely beholden to someone else for support.
yeah, I pretty much had my car and the belongings that I could fit in my car. And then if he were there, like, because he was there at that point, had his RV and him. And then,
Was there ever a point when you looked at your life and said, Cassie, how did you get here?
yeah, sometimes towards the end for sure.
Okay.
Because we were together for a couple months, and then we started fighting really bad. And he was a big manipulator, and he had a way with his words, the way he talked to you, and the way he was so convincing about things. So I had to trust and believe him, even though in the back of my mind I'm like, this doesn't sound right. Well,
But what could you do?
exactly.
You were
like,
you were trapped. I mean, there
Yeah.
wasn't any place that you could go anywhere.
I
Yeah.
mean, if I really wanted to, I could have called my grandparents and been like, hey, I need to come live with you. But then,
Is this the point when your pride gets in the way?
yeah, and then also, if I leave this situation, then I won't have these drugs anymore. If I leave this person, I won't have this life anymore. And I mean, really, what life was it? But I liked this person, and even more, I liked the drugs. So it was rough. Now I knew in the back of my mind that I could if I wanted to, but deep down I didn't really want to. And it's crazy because even though it isn't much of a life, the drugs in him was a life.
It took over everything.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So, we couldn't stay at his RV no more because it was on somebody's property. We couldn't move it. So we resorted to my car. And then we were driving around in my car, getting high, going to people's houses that we knew, that we would hang out with. And then after that, like we found a place that we could stay. Well, then we couldn't stay there no more. So then we was back to my car. And then my dad had moved out of the house. Him and my mom split up while I was with the last boyfriend. Well, my dad left the house, and it was just my mom and my brother there. And we needed a place to go, so my dad said, if you go there, help your mom, whatever with the bills, you can go there and stay. And so we moved there. Then my dad sold the house, like a couple months later. And then we up and had to leave again. So we were gonna be homeless, living in my car. But we got a hold of one of his other friends, and he didn't have anything to do with drugs. He drank, and that's it. And he said, if you live here, like, I don't want any drugs in my house. I don't want that around or anything. And, we're like, okay, obviously we're using. We're not going to just stop like that. So we had to sneak around about it and everything. Now, this whole time, through this whole period of losing places to live and living in my car and all this, he got very mean and manipulative. And when I would call him out on his bullcrap, he would get violent. Mm-hmm. And he started to destroy my things. He would take my stuff from me because he knew that was something that I liked and I wanted. He would destroy my car if I wouldn't listen to him.
So not only are you an addict at this time, but you're also a domestic abuse victim.
Yes. And if we were in the car, like, he would always want to take my car to go do whatever he was doing, which was being with other girls. And I'm like, you're not going to use my car for something that I don't want you to do, because I thought that I loved him, and, like, I was in love with him, and I just wanted him to be my boyfriend, but he just wanted to go be this drug addict with these other, I don't know if you can say this on radio.
Nope, don't say it. We don't. We'll leave that to the imagination.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and if I wouldn't let him take my car, he would destroy it. He, one point, we were in a fight at his mom's house, and he tried to get me to leave, but he had my it was in the middle of winter. He had my shoes. He locked me out of the house. I didn't have my phone or my shoes or anything, and he wanted me to leave. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. So he comes outside and rips my rear view, or the side mirror off the driver's side, and throws my phone out the upstairs window. I think it's my phone, but he just threw my phone case out the window. I later found out it was just my phone case, but to make me think that he was destroying my stuff.
There's a lot of emotional manipulation going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this was all because I found out that he was, like, cheating on me. Now, we had said that we weren't technically in a relationship, but we weren't talking to other people, and we weren't doing other things with other people.
In your mind, it was exclusive.
Yeah, and that's what we had discussed. And he had agreed to that. So when I find out these other things, especially leaving me at your grandma's house or your mom's house or whatever, for the very first time that I've ever been there, to leave and go pay somebody to, mm-hmm. just use your imagination, and then come back and, like, want to sleep in the same bed with me. And I'm like, he came back, and I found, like, he left, and I thought he took my car keys with him because he used somebody else's car. Mm-hmm. And he, like, hid my car keys from me, so I couldn't leave. I finally found them, and I went to the gas station that he was at. He wasn't there. And finally he comes back. I'm like, where you been? He's like, oh, I had a flat tire and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. Well, your phone says different. And then that's when it all started, when he was being violent to me. He threw me outside and all that. Well, then after that, another time that he was like that to me, he wanted to leave early in the morning, said he was going to work, but really he went and met up with this girl. I found out later, but because I wouldn't let him take my car, he punched my steering wheel, so, like, the emblem thing was, like, indented in it. He punched out my radio, so my radio didn't work no more. He ripped my rearview mirror off. He punched me, like, in my leg, everything, because I was in the passenger seat. And he was just being very violent towards me. He was driving down the road. I got out of the car with my stuff in my pockets and everything. I lost my phone that day because it was rainy, it was dark, and I was just trying to get away from him because that's the most abuse that I've ever experienced. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do but to get out and run away.
So you got out of the car.
Yeah, and then he's like, please get back in the car. And he's chasing me down the road. I lost his cigarettes that I had in my pocket. I lost my phone. He broke the glass piece also. So I was also pissed about that. I was like, and then I finally got back in the car. He's like, okay, like tried to sweet talk me, tried to say sorry or everything. So then he took my car and I stayed home and I got bruises on my legs and on my arms and everything. And then he calls me from work and asks if I'm okay. And I'm like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like the manipulation and like just the, I don't even know what to call it. It's just.
So how were you able to get away from all that? Tell me how you escaped that.
I left. Okay, there's this one situation where I actually thought he was going to kill me. Now, I have always felt safe with him because even though he would hurt me, he wouldn't let anybody else hurt me, and I knew that for a fact. Like, if we were around other dangerous people, or like he thought they might be dangerous, because being involved in drugs and money and all that, it's dangerous sometimes because people can get crazy. And I always felt like he would protect me against other people, even though he did that stuff to me. Well, this one time we were driving down the road and he pulled a knife out and hovered over me, and he drove me to a cornfield, and he stopped and he stabbed my car door. And then he made a phone call, made it sound like he made a phone call. And then he drove to a cemetery. And at the cemetery, he made it seem like I was going to get out and he was bringing me to somebody so they could finish the job. So at that point, I couldn't trust him not to hurt me, and I couldn't trust him not to let anybody else hurt me.
I need to interject here that this young lady is 24 years old. Okay, you're 24 now.
Yeah.
This is all stuff that you have gone through just in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean,
yeah.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
There's a lot more too. There's tons of things.
And we don't have to get into huge specifics
right.
About those kinds of things. The main reason why I wanted to have you in here is to kind of talk about what you've been through and the fact that you've survived.
Yeah.
So
I have.
Getting away from this abusive situation, how did that come about?
Well, see, I didn't trust him no more. So at that point, I was always skittish. I was always scared. Like, I didn't trust the people that we were hanging out with in the house that we were staying at either. So then I left because I had to go see my probation officer, and I had a drug test, and I failed that, obviously. I thought I was going back to jail, but I didn't. But my husband, actually, he got out of prison from his sentence from when we got in trouble in 2018. Mm-hmm. He is just getting out of prison in September of 2021, is it?
It might be, because we're only 2 months into 2023.
Yeah, yeah. So, and he's just getting out. I have his wallet and I have his phone, so we have to meet up so I can give him his stuff. And we're talking, and I've talked to him a few times while he was in prison and stuff. Well, I told him what was happening, and he let me stay with him. I wasn't supposed to stay with him because he was living in a motel that the state pays for. Mm-hmm. And he would sneak me in because if he didn't, then I'd be sleeping on a park bench. And I didn't have any clothes or anything. I just left everything because I was scared that I was going to die. I left my car. I left my clothes. The only thing I had was like my phone and a few clothing items that I left at a friend's house. I went back and got them. And I wore his clothes for like the first week. He finally came and dropped some stuff off to me. Was supposed to drop my car off, but didn't. I had to go back and get that once I had two people that could help me go get it, and I could figure out where he was. Because it was in my name, so there's nothing he could do. But he tried to keep it from me anyways. Yeah, so it's pretty much my husband helped me get out of it. Otherwise, I would have had no choice but to stay there. And I quit drugs like cold turkey. When I went and got my car, actually, there was some in one of the bags in there that he left. And I was only clean for a week. And I tell you, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do was take that baggie and give it to somebody else and not touch it.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Being a week clean. Thank you. Yeah, that was hard. And I watched him dispose of it. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, no. And then, but like, also, the other side, I'm like.
Can you point at that day as the difference maker in your life? Maybe?
Yeah. And then, and then my husband, after being back together for a couple weeks, I found out that I was pregnant. So, that it makes me emotional.
Yeah. So tell me now. So you're married to Dennis. And I've watched you on Facebook become a mama bear. I have watched you. I mean, you are like, you want to be the protector of this young man and see to it that he never has to go through anything like you have gone through. That's how I read it. Am I reading it right?
Yeah. And I want to make sure that I'm able to raise my son to not be around drugs. And I don't want to be that mom that I've seen so many other people be to their kids as that drug mom, or that mom that doesn't take care of their kids, doesn't bathe them when they're supposed to, doesn't feed them properly, doesn't take care of them because they're more worried about getting high. And I don't ever want to be that type of mom.
On the day when you became a mom, did you come to the realization that you're living for somebody else now, not yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Tell me about that.
It's definitely like a big change in your life. Like once you have a kid, especially if you want to be that baby's like everything. Because there's some people out there that just seem to care more about drugs than their kids. And I always told myself I'm never going to be that person. So, like, on the day that he was born, I
And
knew.
he's how old now?
8 months.
8 months old. Okay.
Yep. And
he is the most adorable, red-headed, brown-eyed child I think I've ever seen.
yes,
Yeah.
he's so cute.
Anyway.
Yeah, like, and it's true when people say, like, once you become a mom, then everything else is like second. And like people have wanted me to like come over or wanted to see the baby or something, and I'm like, well, I do, but he's sleeping or he's not feeling it today. He's cranky, he's tired. And people just have to deal with that because whatever he needs is what I'm going to do first. Then whatever I want to do or whatever somebody else wants to do, even if it does involve my child, then it's still.
So I'm going to ask you a really, really, this might be a hard question. You're 24 now. You spent 2 years in my classroom. You were 16, 17. So what would the 24-year-old mother, Cassie, say to the 17-year-old student who was in my classroom?
Oh, that is kind of a hard question.
Yeah.
One thing I would say is always trust your gut and trust your first instinct, because there's a lot of things that happened after I left and being in all the situations that I've been in. Like my first instinct about it about certain things, I'm like, that's probably not right. But then I'm like, oh no, it's fine, you know. And probably like life isn't as hard as, it's not as rough as it may seem. Like it's always going to get better no matter what. Like in high school, I was on and off depressed and like didn't want to live. And
I remember that. You and I had conversations in the hallway, and I was like, kiddo, you don't know how good you are. You don't know, and that's how do you see that as truth at 17?
Exactly. And I'll tell you what, like being 17 and in school, and the things I thought that were horrible then, like,
or important then,
is not even it's not even matter now. Like it doesn't even matter now. Yeah. And like the first boyfriend that you have, like it's probably not gonna last. Like, I mean, there is some people out there that it has, but it's okay if you break up. Like it's not the end of the world. Work on yourself and work on finding the person that you want to be, instead of like wanting everything to do with them. Because that's one of the reasons why I don't have many friends, because when I was in that first relationship, we were so stuck on each other. Like we didn't want to hang out with anybody else. And then that's one of the reasons why we broke up, is because he kind of started to want different things.
Your bubble was too small. Your bubble needed to be bigger.
Yeah. And you know, but
so congratulations for surviving, kid.
thanks.
I am so happy that you and I are able to sit here and talk about this, and you're able to share your story with everyone. And really, I mean, everything that you've shared in the last 50 minutes here could theoretically happen to someone's daughter, someone's son, right?
Exactly, because I never thought that would happen to me. I never thought that I would even try drugs. I never thought that I would even come in contact with the police. I
spend time in jail.
Yeah, I never thought any of that could happen. I never thought that at some point in my life I could be looking at prison time.
Well,
thankfully I didn't.
And
but.
and the Cassie that I knew in digital media production was someone I never saw going in that direction either. And from the day that I saw you in that mugshot when I was working at 9 and 10, the fact that you're here to tell your story, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
All right. So what's next for you? Everything. So if everything in life works out exactly the way you want it to be, where is Cassie Faust in 5 years?
Well, I was thinking about, I don't know for sure, but I was thinking about trying to go back to school. I don't know for what yet. But yeah, that, and just being happy with my husband and our son.
Finding a job and showing up on time every day.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I'm a late person though. I'm always late. Like,
yeah, I know.
If I
totally get it. I totally get it. You sleep too long. You wait until too late to start getting ready. It just happens.
Especially with the baby, it's so hard.
You will. New moms are never on time. Ever. You know, I mean, if you're setting a time for you and Dennis to be somewhere, it needs to be a half hour before you actually have to be there.
Yeah. See, like if the bus wasn't bringing me to your class, I probably would have been late for that too.
Well, here's to great things for you in the future. I am very proud of you. You have overcome a lot of things that weren't some things that were your decision, some things that just happened to you through no fault of your own. But Cassie Faust has been our guest. Cassie, thank you for trusting me enough to answer these questions and to talk about your life. And I love you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and Glad we finally did it.
We've been talking about it for a while. All right.
Yes.
Cassie Faust, our guest on Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. Join us next week. Same time, same station for more local chat, sponsored by Independent Bank on CDY.